Hey everyone! Today we're going to talk about finding the difference between two numbers. And so the way we're going to pick what our numbers are is we're going to look at how many doors and how many windows you guys have in your houses. And we're going to find the difference between those two. So for my example, for Ravi's example really, I'm only going to use the windows in our living room because that's where he spends most of his day sleeping or watching his friend Mr. Bunny while I'm doing my lessons. And to make it quicker for him, because really, he only started learning grade 1 math at the beginning of March when we started doing the videos online. And so I decided to give him a little bit of a break. But for you guys, I want to use your whole house or apartment. Wherever it is that you live, I want you to use the whole space and count how many doors and how many windows there are and find the difference between the two numbers.
What does finding the difference between two numbers mean?
Great question, Ravi. When we're finding the difference between two numbers, what we're really doing is we're comparing those numbers. So it doesn't necessarily mean we have to use addition or subtraction. We could use either one. But what we're really doing is we're comparing those numbers and figuring out how to get from one to another.
The door has a screen door and a glass door. Do I use both or just one?
I'm actually going to leave that up to you guys. Because I don't know what your houses look like or what your apartments look like, and I don't know what types of doors and windows you have, it's hard for me to make that type of decision. So I'll let you decide what you consider a door and what you consider a window. Because you could even use the doors inside your house too. You don't necessarily just have to use the doors that are leading to the outside. You could use the door to the bathroom or to the bedroom, or if there's one to the kitchen, any type of door you have in your house and any type of window you have in your house.
Counting, and I think that there's 5 windows and 2 doors, even though sometimes I forget about the screen door and run through it.
So to show you Ravi's example, I'm going to use a hundreds chart, but that's just because the numbers are bigger on the hundreds chart. You can use your number line, or you can use your hundreds chart that you made too. So in Ravi's example, we have 5 windows. So I'm going to circle the number 5. And we have 2 doors because he did decide to count both the screen door and the glass door. So we have the number 5 circled and the number 2 circled. And what we're going to do when we find the difference between the numbers is we're going to find how many hops we have to take between 2 and 5. Now there's 2 different ways we can do this. We can either decide to count forwards or we can count backwards. That means there's 2 different equations that we could end up writing for our example. So if I'm counting backwards, I'm going to start at the 5. And remember, I'm not counting the number 5. I'm only counting the hops that I make. So I'm going to start at 5 and I'm going to do 1, 2, 3 hops. If I do it the other way and I count forwards, then I'm going to start at the 2. And remember, I'm not going to count the number 2, I'm just going to count the hops. So I'm going to start at the number 2, and I'm going to count 1, 2, 3 hops. Notice that either way, if I go forwards or if I go backwards, I end up with the same number, the number 3. Now there's a few different ways that I can show what I did on the hundreds chart in an equation. So first let's take when we were counting backwards, so we were subtracting. So I know that my equations are going to have the subtraction sign in, so I'm going to put a minus. I know that I started at the number 5, so that's where my equation is going to start. Now there's 2 different ways I can write this equation. So I started at the number 5 and I subtracted, I took away, and I wanted to end up, so I wanted to equal the number 2. Now in this equation, the missing number is actually on this side of the equal sign. And that's where I'm going to put how many hops I took. So 5 minus, I took 3 hops, equals 2. Now there's a different way I could also write this. I started at the number 5, but this time instead of putting the number 2 at the end, I could put the number 2 here because I'm trying to find the difference between the number 5 and the number 2. So my equation, if I'm saying it in a sentence instead of in a math sentence, I would say the difference between 5 and 2 equals how many hops I took. So this time, how many hops I took is going to go as our answer at the end. So 5 minus 2 equals 3. Look at the way that when we took hops forwards, we're going to be looking at addition equations. So we're going to be using the plus sign. So I'm going to make sure that I put my plus sign. Now I'm going to put where I started. So I started at the number 2. And after the equal sign, I'm going to put where we ended. So we ended at the number 5. And what I was trying to figure out 2 plus what equals 5. How many hops will I have to take? So in this one, in the addition equation, the number of hops will always go here next to the 2. So 2 plus, I took 3 hops, equals 5. So now depending on how many windows and doors you have in your house, your numbers will be different than mine. So you won't have 5 and 2 to work with. But either way, I want you to show me in your work, I want you to show me how many windows you have, how many doors you have, and I want you to write me at least 2 different equations. I want you to write me an addition equation, so a math sentence that uses a plus sign, and I want you to write me a subtraction equation, so a math sentence that uses a minus sign, to help show what the difference between those 2 numbers is. Have fun!